Bonjour, je m'appelle Stünzi et je suis la présidente de Foraus. Foraus, c'est quoi? C'est un laboratoire d'idées, un think tank qui a le but de contribuer à un débat, à un dialogue constructif concernant la politique étrangère de la Suisse et aussi concernant des thèmes internationaux, multilatéraux qui concernent bien sûr la politique en Suisse. Et on fait ça avec un engagement bénévole des personnes qui s'intéressent pour ces thèmes. Ils organisent des événements, ils écrivent des papiers, des blogs. Et le but, c'est vraiment d'être la plateforme pour amener des pistes, des solutions qui sont basées scientifiques et un peu hors du cadre traditionnel de la politique. Moi, j'ai été avec Foraus pour 9 ans déjà. J'ai écrit des papiers, j'ai été le lead du programme environnement, énergie et transport pour quelques ans. Et maintenant, je suis la présidente depuis novembre 2019. Et j'ai été demandée de faire ce vidéo comme participation pour un dialogue qu'on aura le 9 juin concernant les défis d'Europe. Et oui, je vais changer pour anglais maintenant, comme c'est un peu plus facile pour moi. Après, en juin, je vais bien sûr participer en français. As I said, this is a think tank. Well, I'm from a think tank, so I'm not going to give any official opinion or ideas that was put by the think tank. Our idea is really to be the platform for different ideas, but it's more about personal observations that I made and points, ideas that I think are worth discussing in June, and I'm really looking forward to that with the other panelists. So I'm going to split my talk kind of in two parts, because I think one is about challenges for the world, global challenges where Europe will have to and will play an important role, and the other is about, and of course they're connected, but the other is about Europe in the world and the challenges they face kind of towards other parts of the world. I'm not going to talk about Corona right now. I think I'm not the expert in this, and I think there's, of course, it's an immense challenge for Europe, for the world. But what I think it's also very clear that it underlines other challenges that we have and that will come up again in a sense when policymaking is not so much dominated only by and how to mitigate the pandemic, but what comes afterwards, and also how we stimulate the economy, how we organize ourselves as a society after or with COVID-19. And maybe to make, my background is in psychology and economy. I'm about to finish my dissertation in climate and resource economics. And maybe that's why I also bring it up, or that's pretty sure why I also bring it up as the first topic, climate change. The scientific facts are very, very clear. We will have, as the global community, to reduce our emissions to net zero. The earlier the better, because the more emissions we release, we will have to bring them down, and the global budget of emissions that we have is shrinking, so that we can, the global budget that we have, so that we can keep up with the target of limiting global warming to well below 2 degrees. As I said, the target is very clear, but climate change and the mitigation of climate change is a typical collective action challenge, so it's only going to work if all countries contribute. And this challenge is exacerbated by asymmetries that we have. Some countries are much more affected they're more vulnerable towards changing climate, towards global warming. And of course, there are different historic responsibilities that we have, and Europe, of course, has a very, very high responsibility regarding past emissions and still regarding today's emissions. So we will have to reduce, and we'll have to reduce a lot. And it's not only about emissions that we cause within Europe, but of course also by importing goods that we consume here. Also, those are responsible for a lot of emissions. And another challenge or another important point that I see there is, of course, the role of finance. In Europe, we have a lot of financial hubs and centers, and the Paris Agreement makes it very clear we will have to align also the financial flows to the 1.5, the well below 2-degree target, and Europe can and will have to play an important role in that. And it's not just about aligning the finance of private actors. It is also that we have committed all as community of states to provide finance to developing countries, the so-called international climate finance. And we once calculated this in a scientific paper, and we see that Europe, we kind of have to bear the responsibility for about 30% of this national climate finance obligations that will have to be given to other countries so that they can actually fulfill their mitigation targets and adapt to already happening changes. When we look at the situation now with Corona, emissions fell. There was a big cut in emissions. In China, for example, emissions decreased by about 25% during the peak time of the crisis. And it is estimated that compared to what was projected for 2020 earlier, that emissions are going to be 6% lower. And these cuts in emissions due to the lockdowns, the reduction of industrial activities, of mobility, of air travel grounding, makes that certain countries, for example Germany and Switzerland, are going to achieve their emission targets for 2020, but of course not because of any climate policy, but because of the policies to mitigate the pandemic. And I think we've seen in the past that emissions have decreased during economic crisis, during the oil crisis, for example, also during the financial crisis. But with the latter, we've seen that emissions rebounded very, very fast after the crisis, which underlines the need that we have to make sure that we align the way we consume, the way we produce, the emission intensity of our economy with this target, because otherwise we kind of risk to lock ourselves in, to lock the industries in, to lock our infrastructure into emission-intense pathways instead of the ones who go aligned with the Paris target. What I think is important is that we're not only talking about climate change. We have, for example, a very important conference coming up regarding biodiversity. There are other environmental challenges, and it's very important that we don't focus only on climate in that sense. With biodiversity, for example, we had very, very clear targets and we failed to achieve them until 2020. So we're now going to decide on new targets, and I think it's important that we keep this in mind too, and that Europe keeps its role in that too. Another topic that we will have to talk about is migration, and in particular the protection of humanitarian migrants coming to Europe. The crisis in 2015, I rather call it a coordination crisis in Europe, and not so much, or not the refugee crisis as it's usually called, for example in the media. I think so far we have failed find a way on how to deal with numbers of refugees coming, and we have failed to find a reform of the current system, and this is going to be on top of the agenda very soon. When we observe now that during the pandemic, some countries have agreed on a bottom-up basis to resettle some refugees from Greek islands, I think that could be an interesting start, similar to the bottom-up logic of the Paris Agreement, on how to contribute to this collective action of humanitarian protection. There is one other topic I think is worth mentioning. Of course, it's digitisation. Europe is often cited as kind of lagging behind China, the US, and we'll have to find our way. And I think it's important to define, to discuss on how we want to deal with data protection, but also with the use of the internet, of artificial intelligence in our daily lives, in the way we produce and consume. And it's going to be a discussion that will have to take place in Europe as well, and I think also at this debate. The other topics, global supply chains, taxation, and they all already link to kind of the second part. We are in a multipolar world, and Europe will have to kind of find its way in how to deal with this. If we observe that certain multilateral institutions are blocked by power plays of the US, of China, Europe will have to find a way on how to deal with this and how to make sure that those institutions still work, and that Europe can bring in its ideas and and otherwise, and also how to deal with these powers outside of these institutions, vis-a-vis the US and China, of course, but also, for example, Brazil. There were these discussions about the Amazon last summer, and yeah. So, what's the response of Europe towards these countries and such conflicts? Another thing that I think is important inside Europe is the way we make politics. It's maybe a bit a special observation, but I feel what I really liked was this statement in Germany, that we will have to say sorry a lot about after the crisis, or after the first month in the crisis, because politics is made based on assumptions too, and there was a lot that we didn't know in the beginning of the crisis, and there was a lot that we had to try and simply think, well, that's the best we know at the moment, so we're going to do that. And it kind of goes a bit counter the image that some politicians want to give inside, but in particular outside Europe, on like knowing exactly what's the best. And I think having a very transparent way of making politics is maybe a more inclusive way of making it, and giving the population the feeling that they can contribute, that civil society is important, that their opinion is important, and that new ideas, fresh ideas are essential for policy making, that politicians, of course, can be experts in certain areas, or they can rely on experts, but that they're tangible for the population. And I think this way of making politics is maybe something that Europe can bring outside a bit too. I'm going to end this with a last topic on I think we have to talk about, which is global inequality. And for that, I feel the best is to cite something that I've read from a person from South Africa, which says we're not in the same boat, we're in the same storm. And I think this is very true, of course, for Corona, but also for the other challenges, the ones I mentioned and the ones that I didn't. And I think it should be Europe's role, and of course it's a challenge, to not only make sure that our boat is going through the storm, but that you take the other boats with you, and that you help the other boats to be better equipped if another storm is coming and to prevent other storms. And I think this is going to be, something that Europe will have to think about in future policy making. I'm very much looking forward to the debate. I'm very much looking forward to the inputs and observations by the other panelists. And see you soon.